On this installment of Creative Cabin Fever, I take a trip down Viking memory lane. These guys were actually the headliners at my first ever Viking gig. So to me, they're quite an important band. With recent developments in my interview style, I tried to find the song that spoke to me most in this lockdown period from their back catalogue, and I landed on Poetry. Because realistically, I do wish we could sleep until this all ends. And the world did end overnight for no apparent reason.
That's
very true.
Very fitting.
Yeah, I think there's a certain resonance to being able to pick different bands and why a certain song impacts them in this time. So I'm liking that idea. I think I'm going to keep playing around with it. So dudes, introduce yourselves.
I'm Polly. I play the guitar and I sing.
I'm Tom, and I drum with the occasional backing vocal.
And I'm Matt, and I play the bass and don't sing.
You're the banter man.
Occasionally.
But you wear Easter egg t-shirts and grow plants.
Shout out to Aterso.
Yep.
So guys, I'm really interested because obviously you're not based in Ireland, you're based in the UK. What's lockdown in the UK like? Because we don't have access to each other's countries or any real knowledge of what really is going on in other people's countries.
Don't even get me started. I've become like a full-on like social keyboard warrior at the moment because everything is pissing me off. Every single decision that is made is infuriating and is just the absolute wrong decision. And I don't want to go too political here, but you know, I've been an angry boy recently. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, you're very political at the moment, Tom.
I know.
You cannot be stopped.
I'm trying to make people not hate me at the same time, so I'm having a little breather on the Facebook with the 10 political posts a day. We're like, what the fuck is this Tory government doing?
I always enjoy it because I'm not a very political person, so I like to see. It's like a reminder for me. So I like to see all your posts.
Oh, good. Well, you know, as long as it's affecting at least one person, even if it is like my own sister.
The quality of the memes is like the only benefit of COVID situation, I would say.
Yeah, that's some good.
Shit posting has gone up.
Hell yeah. That's been the relief. Tiny part.
Yeah.
Of a monumentally fucked up shit situation. Sorry.
No. This interview is to actually capture your personal magic as a band, and I think you're doing that quite well, Tom. I don't actually think you're angry. I think you're impassioned.
Oh yeah, like I'm just, you know, I'm not advocating that other people would do it better, but I think it's very important that people should point out flaws in the system and all that shit.
I think like a dead horse could run the country better though, so you know, you're allowed to say that.
I mean, like, yeah, we've got Boris as our Prime Minister. Like, we got what we paid for.
Oh, this is the most depressing start to anything ever.
Show you cry.
I know. What's it like in Ireland?
Okay, so yeah, you wouldn't have heard that, and anyone on your end listening to this interview would be interested. It's been 9 weeks in lockdown. This week was the first week that things started to kind of shift. So what would be required, like, or what would be acknowledged as essentials have reopened, but everything is done with like social distancing. So like, then there's people kind of fighting over what an essential is, what an essential isn't. So people are getting on to me for going for my daily coffee and a walk, because coffee isn't an essential. But to me, coffee is an essential.
What's it like in like public? Sorry, Polly, you go.
No, it's fine.
I was just going to say what.
I gave my 2 cents.
What's it like in public places? As in like parks and beaches and stuff like that.
People are really stupid over here. Like there's so many people ignoring the guidelines. Yeah. Like you can go to the park outside my front door and it's just like covered in people.
Yeah.
Which was me also, but I was isolated in the corner of the park reading a book, so it's fine.
There you go.
I'm kind of suffering with social anxiety at the moment, so I don't tend to go outside too much. I've only really left the house 6 times since lockdown started.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, the days where my son is here, for instance, I don't go outside because there's so much prejudice and hatred around children at the moment and fear that I find it really, really difficult. Loads of the shops over here are refusing access to anyone with children, which is really hard for me as a single parent. I've had to get everything delivered to the house.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you feel about schools reopening then?
I'm actually genuinely considering keeping my son out of school next year if I don't like what way schools are going to approach social distancing.
Yeah.
Not because I believe I'll be the perfect person to homeschool him, but because I believe he's at a very impressionable age where if we teach him that he has to be distanced from others, it will impact him for the rest of his days.
Totally get that. Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
Good point. I hadn't even thought about that, to be honest.
I
So-
bet there's going to be so many parents in like the same boat as well, though, and with other reasons too.
For sure. I was
Not sending their kids back.
Even the threat of like the second wave hitting us is enough to scare me to say I'd never let my kids out the house for like the next 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Let alone going back to school for like what, a month and a half before the summer holiday starts.
The whole June, bringing kids back to school on June the 1st is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Like
Over here, nothing is going to kick off till September minimum for schools because we're phasing things back in 5 phases. So it's not an immediate, let's just see what happens. We're trying to stifle like adjustment, do you know? But
yeah.
We're not that sensible.
But he did take the longest to go in line with lockdown in the first place.
Yeah, and that's why we have the most deaths. Ha
We also have a government who's not clear whatsoever with their guidelines. Like everything they say contradicts itself, and so no one knows what to do.
Stay alert.
Stay alert. Like, what the fuck does that mean? Like,
COVID's coming, mate. It's around the corner.
Bullshit, basically.
Everybody has like a great Boris impression, I feel. Do one. I was getting Kieran to do it last night. It was hilarious.
Oh, I would like to hear that. To
be fair, hers wasn't very good. Mine's far superior.
You can't, no, go on then. You can't say that and then not show the goods.
Well, we must stay that. We must send the kids back to school as soon as possible.
Oh, then you would like a cup of tea in the meantime.
None of you fucking peasants like to die. I don't.
You're all peasants. You should all do as I say. Do as I say, not as I do.
And wasn't he hospitalized for like COVID?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I don't know if you saw the interview, but like he stood on the podium and said, "I went into the ward and I shook everyone's hands. All the COVID patients, and everyone was just going, why the fuck did you do that?" And then next thing you hear, Boris Johnson has coronavirus. He's like, no shit.
All this stuff coming out with Dominic Cummings at the moment is like apparently like loads of people in Westminster have got COVID. Like the whole cabinet is kind of like it's riddled throughout our government, and they're just not willing to admit that.
They're setting out these guidelines, and then they're just fucking off across the whole country, basically.
Yeah.
Which is great. Have you seen that T-shirt that says like the Dominic Cummings COVID tour 2020, and it has a list of all the places he's been. Love it.
Yeah, I saw that.
Well, at least someone's doing a tour in 2020, right?
Oh,
right. Oh. Love it. Oh, it's great.
That one cut deep.
Oh.
Yeah,
So,
that's probably a good time to mention we were meant to go on our first European tour next week. Yeah. That's not happening. Yeah.
Look, we're all in the same boat. Like, this is what I'm kind of enjoying about this time. It's kind of base level for everyone.
Yeah, everyone's in it together for sure. Like every band has been affected the same. Like not obviously just bands, everyone in every industry and every family, but like all bands have cancelled their tours. They've all cancelled their studio sessions. Everything's cancelled. So, and everyone's in together. So at least we've got unity in that sense. But at the same time, I definitely think like the entertainment industry is going to be the industry that comes back last, because it's essentially not as essential, I guess, to everything else. So
Yeah.
it's a really big hit in this industry, which is really sad to see. Basically.
Now, yes and no, okay? So in the format we currently know it or knew it, the entertainment industry will be one of the lasts. However, as one of the most creative industries around, I reckon we're all going to reinvent and find ways to still stay relevant.
Oh yeah, I do agree to that. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, this is going to give some great content. Like, you know, everyone's got so much time to write music, and I mean, I like to think that again, going back to the politics side of things, people are given a lot of things to write music about now, a lot of anger to kind of funnel and to, like, you know, point towards new directions with their music and stuff. So, who knows, maybe in a year's time, we're going to have all this amazing catalogue of music inspired by the last year.
Angsty COVID songs are incoming.
Yeah.
From everywhere.
Yeah.
And Matt, obviously this affects you on two levels, because it affects you for the band and also affects you with like promotion of your own, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so my job is an event manager, and the events industry is now gone.
Is it?
So that's the thing. But working in a venue, it's like you're both events and you're hospitality. So who knows when bars and pubs are allowed to open again? Yeah.
I have no idea.
Gigs rely on hospitality just as much as like we need people to like turn up for the gigs. So if there's no bars about, what can we do? Sucks.
And even if they reopen, right? So like the perceived idea of when that's going to reopen in Ireland is August 10th-ish, okay? That's the time frame we're kind of given in this 5-step plan.
Right.
When they reopen, they won't reopen the way we know them. So you have to consider that cost of tickets will have to be higher in order to make up for the fact that less people will be able to attend. Bands' prices may have to come down to help the industry in order to still retain what they want. Everything is just going to be very, very different. So then you have to look at the potential for other ways to still stay relevant, like, you know?
Yeah. And I think there's so much fear as well around the events industry now, because like just going into open spaces in a gig, you're surrounded by people, right? I don't think ticket sellers are going to put their money behind concerts until next year. If I was like Ticketmaster, I wouldn't be investing in massive gigs that are going to be cancelled, right? Or I wouldn't put on like a huge arena tour where there's a risk that the government are going to shut it down within the next 6 months anyway. So I think it's going to take longer than we think for gigs to come back in the way that we knew them, for sure.
Yeah, big time.
Damn.
Well, this has been the cheeriest podcast so far.
Do you know what? We are gonna take it in a different direction because we're actually being quite cheery. We're funny, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is what it is. Like at the end of the day, it's a heap of shit. It's a heap of shit for everybody.
It is. It certainly is.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, before this, we were having a very chilled out conversation about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That was very chill. There was no angry people there.
Yeah. That is now my life. Watching Buffy and Angel side by side.
That is what we are doing.
That's
I love you guys.
It's season 5 of Angel right now, and it's kicking off.
No spoilers. I'm only on season 2 of Angel. Season 5.
It's your first time doing Angel, isn't it, Polly?
It's my second time,
No. Well, kind of.
But I didn't finish it the first time, so I'm nearly at where I got to last time before I stopped. But I've watched Buffy a few times.
So good.
Very good.
There are many reasons why Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel are incredible TV shows, right? The first one obviously is Joss Whedon's wit and humour. The second one, however, would be his character development, because it's very, very seldom you'll actually see people truly progress and change throughout the history of seasons. Whereas if you look at Cordelia, for instance, base level Cordelia, to who she eventually grows to be, it's amazing.
It's
It
insane.
is. It's
Absolutely
incredible.
insane.
Oh,
It's-
Cordelia.
Although I would say Joss Whedon screwed up Cordelia in the seasons of Angel, but I won't go into it while he hasn't seen it. But I think there was a bit of character assassination going on with her.
I don't think that was her fault though, and I don't think that was necessarily his fault. Wasn't it like there was a bit of a contract breach?
Yeah, it's because she got pregnant at the time and she wanted out, and then
He didn't tell him as well until it was like a little bit too late.
Yeah,
As in like with the obvious pregnancy and all that.
yeah.
So I kind of get that, like, you know, you had to like go, oh shit, I've got to do something about this real quick.
Yeah, but then you've got the whole aspect, like Cordelia, you hate her in Buffy. At the start of Buffy, at least, she's just horrible. She's like the
I didn't
school,
hate her. I just didn't
but like,
too much.
yeah.
I
But
always loved Cordy.
Me
she's
too.
really
I
funny.
had a big crush on her, but
Oh, who doesn't have a
Who
crush on
doesn't?
her?
that might be why.
I don't know. I think Angel really developed her into something amazing, and
Oh,
then
yeah, definitely.
thought about that, and then was like, oh wait, she's leaving now. Bye.
There's that one episode where in Angel where she, you know, when she gets her visions, the episode she gets them, but like all the time, and she's like in a coma state.
Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah.
so intense. That's like the moment where like her character changes, and she's like, shit, I have to help people. And that for me is when like she like truly starts to become the Cordelia, or like the end game Cordelia.
Yeah.
I agree. And what I love about that, it's like the death of Doyle, right? Because obviously, incredible character, wonderful actor, but unfortunately, he was actually traumatized by his own demons. So they had to remove him from the cast. And the parallels in life and the way that actually works for that particular character, it's just fascinating to me.
Is that why
Definitely.
he left? Because I didn't realise why he got.
He struggled
so
really
early.
badly with addiction. So they had to remove him off the crew.
Didn't he
I know that's how he died in
got an
real life.
overdose season 2 or something. It was really sad.
Yeah, he died in real life, didn't he? Like, I think in season 3, at the end of one of the episodes, I was watching it, and then it just came up with the in the memory.
Yeah.
Of. And I was like, oh shit.
So because I'm watching season 5 at the moment, and they just started like mentioning him all the time again, just as a thing, which is quite nice because like they kind of forgot Doyle was a guy for ages, and now in season 5 they're just kind of like, oh, do you remember Doyle? It's like yes,
I
I
love
do.
Doyle, but his demon side, like, you know, people have that fear of like lots of little holes when they see like swarms of holes.
I kind of
They're
get
like,
that.
oh my
I can't
god,
relate.
that's the same with like Doyle's face. Whenever I saw Doyle's demon side, I would always be like wincing and cringing because I couldn't. It was
I get that. I
weird.
can relate to that for sure.
Yeah.
I think I have that a little bit, you know, that little weird phobia thing.
Mm.
I was telling Claire about it the other day, and she didn't get it at all. And I was like, there's something about it that makes my skin crawl. About little holes. I don't know what it is. Anyway,
Little
weird.
holes, it is weird. It's so
Yeah.
strange.
Do you have any other weird phobias?
Oh, yeah.
For instance, I'm really weird about textures, so I don't like flour and I don't like sand.
I can relate to that as well, but I'm quite specific. I can't touch paper if my hands have been wet, and it has been
What?
like if my hands have been wet, I have to wait a good 3 to 4 hours before I can comfortably touch paper again. Otherwise, it sends a shiver down my spine, like really bad.
I kind of get that too, though.
I
I get
can't touch it at all.
I do understand
No,
that.
no, no.
Either
I kind of want to go into. Oh, I've never heard of that.
really.
I must have told you that before.
No.
Well, you know.
Viking exclusive right here before the bandmates.
Tom can't touch paper with wet
I have
hands.
this huge phobia of peas.
If they're dry though, then I'm all over it.
Polly,
Yeah.
do you have any weird fears?
Yeah, I hate peas. Like to the point where it's ridiculous. Like I can't look at them. I won't let my partner eat peas in the house, which sounds so extra.
It is extra.
It's a weird thing. But I have it with like raisins as well. I don't know what it is, and sweet corn, which is weird because I can have corn on the cob, but I can't eat sweet corn.
Would you say that's a
Even though-
phobia, like a taste preference? Like you just don't like those foods, or you're actually like,
I don't think it's that.
yeah, anxiety from those foods.
What? Say it again.
Do you think like those foods are giving you anxiety, or you just don't like eating those foods, sort of thing?
I think it's
I know peas like make really, really.
I think it's all stemmed from my childhood, and like just like eating habits from my childhood, and but I think it's like it's turned into like this huge thing in my head, and I don't know how to describe it, but it's got a name. It's like an actual phobia. I've got to find out what it is. Fear of peas.
And do you think it relates back to the fact that you're also kind of scared of holes? Because maybe it's the fact that you don't actually like circular, empty things, because both corn, raisins and peas all have that kind of spherical shape and they're all separate and separable. So perhaps it is all interconnected.
Maybe.
What? How do you think about pomegranates? Because they're kind of the same.
Oh, the pomegranates are fine. I don't know what it is, man. It's so weird. I like pomegranates. Pomegranates? How do you say pomegranate? But there's nothing like seeing the whole group of peas together. That's bad. But if I see one pea on its own, I'm like, I'm like gagging. I have this weird thing where if I see a singular pea on its own, I like envision inhaling it into my lung.
Oh, that makes me feel weird as
and
well.
I'm like, and I start gagging.
Inhaling it into your lung.
Oh,
like it goes
That's a horrible
eat
thought.
the lung.
Did you ever choke on a vegetable when you were a baby or anything that you might actually be scared of asphyxiation due to like having almost died?
No, but I when I was a child, I had like a big thing with food. I couldn't like eat very many foods. I just like had a bit of a fear of food. So I think that's just something. Although I'm like over that now, I think that's just like one thing that's kind of like passed over.
This is obviously a childhood thing.
Oh yeah, like I think I was generally traumatized. by peas. Pulsophobia, that's what it's called. Pulsophobia.
Pulsophobia.
Pulsophobia, like pulse.
Like pulsophobia.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, the more you know.
Matt, what are you scared of that's weird?
I don't think I'm scared of weird things.
Yeah, you can't say anything obvious, like death or spiders or whatever.
Commitment, it's gotta be a wrong one as well.
I'm okay with spiders, and I'm okay with death.
Bring it on.
Let's be having you.
I feel like I'm just scared of social interaction. That's it. That's me.
People relate to that.
Yeah, that's me. Having to go outside. No thanks.
Right now, I'm really awkward. Like I worked really hard to get over social formatting, like hookups. Like I'm a weird person, like, but like I'm awkward. And I'd gotten to this point, I was like, okay, I'm not so awkward in social situations anymore. And then lockdown happens, and now I'm like,
that's what I'm worried about, actually. I get that. Like, am I actually losing all ability to normally function in society and talk to people just regularly, have small talk and all that? Like, felt like I was building something up, and now I'm probably going to have to work on it again, you know? Like, and that's kind of a bit daunting and scary.
Mm.
I agree. It is scary.
But I think a lot of people are in that boat, though.
Yeah, I broke quarantine the other day because I'm a bit bad. But I went to see my old housemates, Joe and Michael. So they're in isolation, I'm in isolation, kind of whatever. But just being in a room or sat in their back garden was really odd for like an hour. It was just like, how do we, why? What are we doing here? It was, I don't know, I got really anxious about it.
I'm just used to seeing people in tiny boxes on my laptop screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally get that.
I think everyone's feeling it though. I just don't think everyone's talking about it, but it's definitely something that we should be talking about, and I'm happy that we're talking about it, because it obviously is going to impact everyone. And by even just the four of us going, yeah, I feel that too. Imagine how many other people who might hear this be like, oh, it's cool, it's normal, I can talk about it too. And then maybe that'll help everyone not be so awkward and weird.
For sure.
Definitely stigmatized. It's just one of those almost unspoken things. Like, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but you just don't see anyone speak about it. But it's definitely a thing, because when I speak to people individually, they say that they have that, but as a whole, like when you go onto Facebook or whatever, it's never a conversation, and that obviously must mean it's stigmatized to some degree. People must be ashamed of like thinking. I don't want people to think I can't talk to people, because that's just a basic function. But talking to someone and being able to socialize with someone, I think, are two kettles of fish in a sense. Anyone can talk to anyone, but if you can do it coherently in a way that's accepted by society, I guess, I don't know, two different things in my opinion.
I'd agree with you. And I also think a lot of people mistake vulnerability with weakness. To me, my vulnerabilities are actually a strength. And if embraced correctly, they actually allow to empower others. Whereas most people are so scared to allow anyone see kind of, not their flaws, but those weaknesses, I guess, those vulnerable points that we all should learn to embrace. So I think that's part of it.
Yeah. I think showing your vulnerabilities allows other people to show theirs too.
Yes.
It's a more open space and world. I think it's a good thing. Definitely.
You guys recently did a BBC Coombs show. I'm really interested about that, because what I think it is might not be what it actually is. So who wants to tell me what it is?
Matt does.
All right. It was BBC Introducing. So we've been doing it for years. Like, it's basically a format like local bands submit their tracks, and then the local BBC Introducing for the county goes through all the local bands and then plays which ones they like, sort of thing. So we've been quite involved with BBC Introducing Cambridgeshire since the start of the band, really. And their original DJ, Tom Simpkins, who is a legend, who hooked us up loads of times for just like playing us all the time. Kind of, he just really got behind the band pretty much straight away. So he left BBC Introducing, and Ellen Eddard took over, who's also very sick. And she asked us to make that little video for them.
Yeah.
And then we did a little Skype call, and it was cute.
It was very cute. Really enjoyed it.
It was fun to do.
So is it like a regional version of BBC?
Yeah, pretty much. Specifically for
small bands,
new bands, local bands.
Trying to keep the scenes alive, essentially, because obviously scenes are dying everywhere. And so it's like that last kind of national commercialism, not I don't want to say commercialism, but like, trying to bring in new bands and giving a good platform that's already recognized through the BBC, basically.
Yeah, and like the good thing about it is because like quite a lot of like Radio 1 DJs and stuff eventually get some bands from the BBC Introducing passed up to them. Yeah. And then some bands get like some Glastonbury slots and stuff like that.
Reading and Leeds Introducing stage and stuff like that. That comes directly from BBC. So yeah.
But then you've got to think about that. That's like every single county in the country is doing it. So like, it's a very there's a lot of bands out there, kind of thing, doing it.
Yeah. There is nothing like that over here. I'm probably the closest thing for my region to that. Do you know what I mean?
I just presumed it would be something similar in like most countries, but I don't know, maybe that's just me being really naive.
Check your privilege, Tom. But yeah, BBC Introducing have been great. They've really helped us a lot.
One thing that England is doing well. One thing.
Yeah.
There is always room for growth in both. So we touched upon the fact that the tour is cancelled, and obviously that's really disappointing, and obviously a lot of things have been cancelled and we've no idea when gigs are going to come back. I'd be really interested in hearing your memories of gigs. So like, I want to make everyone still buzzed about the prospect that music will come back. So Pollyanna, do you want to start?
I miss gigging so much. It's probably the thing I'm looking forward to the most. Over like the pub and everything. Can't wait to have my Vado and Lemo at the pub, but I can't wait to go have a practice with the boys and go play a shitty gig somewhere like in front of like 5 people. That's my dream.
No gigs.
Don't undersell us, Polly.
No, of course I'm joking.
10 people.
course, I'm joking. But no, probably one of my favourite gigs that we've played is literally, I think it was the last one we did before. I'm holding a tiny hand. I don't know why.
Cool.
I played in Cambridge with the boys. Literally just before at a place called the Blue Moon. Just before, well, I think it was our last gig. It was an amazing gig. It was so much fun. And we played.
The man who was doing the lights knew our songs, and that's such a good thing.
That made it so much better.
When someone puts on the strobe light at the right point. Oh.
But we were able
in the big boy sections.
Yeah, we were able to play some new songs, which we were actually supposed to record at the start of lockdown, but obviously that was cancelled and moved back. So, you know, it's just been fun as of recently being able to play new songs after a couple of years before that having such bad writer's block. But this past year oh god, there's a big bang downstairs. Oh, bloody hell. Wonder what that was. Lost my train of thought now.
It was really good to be able to play new songs after having had writer's block.
Yeah, big writer's block, and then this past year we've just been writing song after song after song. So we're so pumped to, when all this is over, get back in the studio and record some new tracks. But it's just been fun playing new songs at gigs anyway.
It feels like a million years ago, but in January we went for a little soiree in Wales. We booked like this little cabin, and we spent 7 days just writing songs in this little cabin, and it was just bliss. It was so good. The guy who built it was a druid, so he'd like built a big stone circle outside. He was like, I've built this cabin to have 8 walls to represent the 8 notes of an octave. And I was like, this is the perfect.
No Wi-Fi or anything. Like, we were just like cut off, just there to write music and play music. And
it was years ago.
And then
it was funny though, because we came to write music and we told him like we might be a bit loud, and then he was like, yeah, it's fine, don't worry about it. And then when we got there, we were making music and making sound, and then he also invited another guy to come up, stay in his camper van or something. He was doing a silent retreat. So
you can't get much more contradictory.
And he was so pissed off.
Understandably, like.
Yeah. He was really nice as well.
He was nice. His name was Leaf.
Leaf. What's your name?
Leaf.
I think he was a druid as well.
Yeah, probably wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, but yeah, very cool trip that was. I can't remember why we're talking about that, but that was an awesome trip.
Do you know what? I think conversations just go like this now. I'm adapting.
That was cool.
So, you know what? We've covered pretty much everything that we had to in a non-linear way that worked really, really, really well.
We do. Slick transition. That's our
talk about Buffy.
I had to cram that in there, sorry. I'm so obsessed with Buffy right now.
Yeah. The best plot twist is when, like, how cool is it that Dawn's just introduced as a sister halfway through the series? Like, I know, like, Dawn, everybody hates Dawn, but it's such a good plot twist.
It's so unexpected that you just one of those things you can't.
And it's like a cliffhanger that he leaves a whole season of you going like, why is she here? Like, who is this person? And he doesn't answer it for like 8 episodes or so.
It's just like a thing. Like, you're just like, okay, is this just a thing now? Was she always there? What did I miss?
Proper ballsy move, isn't it, really? Like, to leave people hanging for so long thinking, where they're like, when Claire watched it for the first time, this is my girlfriend, like, when she watched it for the first time, she was saying to me, like, was she supposed to be there the entire time? Because I honestly have not seen her before in any of these scenes. And I said, like, no, she's been introduced now. And she's like, then why haven't they acknowledged it? And I was like, I get the frustration, but please just keep on watching. And then when it dropped, she's like, oh, that's really cool. Like, so yeah.
You know what I think the smartest move in that is, and I think it's why it was done, is because Joss Whedon realized that the cast was aging, and the only way in order for him to pull in new follows was to be able to have an age-appropriate person to bring them on board that would have the following of that generation to then be able to generalize it to a bigger, wider audience. That is so freaking clever.
That is clever.
Plus, at the same time, when that series happened, Buffy was like in college, she was like growing up to an adult. Introducing Dawn allowed them to go back to high school and do all the teenage angst stuff that Buffy was built on. Like, Buffy is built on just teenage angst and like people making out and then getting killed by vampires. Like, so Dawn kind of reintroduced that as he realized his cast were getting old, I guess.
I'm pretty sure she was quite well known. Like, she wasn't like an unknown actress before that as well. She had already done like a couple of films and stuff. So like, I think.
Then she did like Gilmore Girls or something like that.
Yeah, and she was in Inspector Gadget as well. She's Inspector Gadget's daughter.
Classic.
And but yeah, so like, you know, that's actually having a fan base already attached to her would have brought that as, you know, more fans as well.
For sure.
Clever move, basically.
We should just start like a Buffy podcast for real.
Yes.
Like,
Can I be your first guest?
fuck yeah.
Yes.
We just have to
And
watch like one episode a week, then review it and talk about it.
Yeah. Oh my god, guys, should we do this?
I think you should. I think it would be great band content. I think you should have your own mini podcast within your band that allows people to get to know you better. To be honest, I think that's a really smart plan.
I'm having
Can
such
we
a realization right now.
can we do a cover of the Buffy theme tune?
Yes, I would
So I'm pretty
recommend
sure I
that's
can
how
already
you
play
start this off.
Yes.
Oh,
Nerf header for life.
Fuck yeah.
it's all falling into place.
I think it's genuinely a good idea.
It's
Dingles
either
ain't
Buffy
my
or
baby.
Lost.
Not Lost.
There's a lot to talk about there, though. There's a lot to talk about.
Lost.
I think a podcast about Lost could like last forever.
There's so much to talk about with it.
Yeah, let's
There
talk about
is.
how shit it is, you know.
It wasn't always. Now, I had this conversation last week on a different interview, and I'm liking that my interviews are taking funny tangents. The writer strike is why Lost became shit, because when the writer
Very
strike
true.
happened, they had to stop everything, and then Brian K. Vaughan wasn't really part of it anymore, and Brian K. Vaughan is one of the best graphic novel writers in the universe, and without him you are fucked.
Well
think right.
said.
I do
Well
think
said.
like, I do love like the first few seasons of Lost. Like that first and second season. Amazing.
And another like factor here is like obviously it had such a huge ensemble cast. Like kind of one of the first shows to have a cast that big, as well as, you know, shooting on Hawaii. Like
Was
they
Was
had
it
like,
David Fury from Buffy? Didn't he go on to do Lost?
Yeah, literally the
Yeah.
same one of the same writers. But you know, they had such a big cast, and some of them had to be written out because of, you know, external factors, like Mr. Echo and
Mr. Echo.
yeah,
Oh.
like he was supposed to be one of the big, like, you know, like at the end the whole faith versus science thing, and he had
Wasn't
to
it
be
gonna
written
be-
out.
I swear I think it was you that told me this, but wasn't it the writers envisioned the final scene of Jack and John Locke battling? That was meant to be Mr. Echo and John Locke battling on the cliffs.
Well, I don't know if it would have necessarily been, you know, on those cliffs and in that exact scenario.
Well, yeah,
It would have changed its own course, but I think it was essentially supposed to be a shift from Jack to Mr. Echo. I can't say that for certain. I don't even think they probably could.
Yeah.
But either way, he was supposed to be, you know, he was supposed to keep going. But I think it was something like both his parents died very abruptly and quickly. And he's British, isn't he, Mr. Echo?
Yeah.
So, there was something else as well. And then obviously there's other characters as well, isn't there? There's like Anna Lucia and Libby. I'm not sure if that was intentional at first.
They got arrested for drunk driving, got banned from Hawaii.
That's
Why
it.
they got they couldn't shoot their scenes anymore because they got arrested.
They were
They
driving
went
back
off
from a party
Hawaii.
or something, weren't they?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Very naughty.
We probably should have talked about our band at some point, but we've talked mostly about TV from like the late 90s today.
I think this
Sorry.
is a powerful interview because it gives everyone the world over an actual idea of what you're like as people. Your music speaks for who you are as a band, and I'd urge anyone who's enjoyed this interview and enjoyed your madness to actually go and listen to it because it's very good. I don't interview anyone who doesn't spark joy in me, so I don't take the time to go back down and figure out what, you know, things are. So you guys are special or I wouldn't have you here. But that's for others to just, you know, discover. the idea of these interviews is to give everyone the proper magic of each person. So this is who you are. You're nerdy 90s movie filmy amazing humans with senses of humors and a lot of keyboard warrior anger in the corner there.
You summed us up like perfectly. All we do is talk about Buffy and Lost. And get angry.
I really think there's promise in this podcast idea too. I do think it'll be really, really good. So I think you should probably think about it some more after this interview when everyone watches it at home and starts messaging you going, that's the best idea anyone ever had. Do it. I think you should just listen.
I bet it's been done. I bet one quick.
Of course it's been done, but you know.
But we haven't done it. That's
true.
the only thing.
That's true.
They can't
You could
only
call
just
it
be
Follies
one
with
thing.
Fez. And you wouldn't have to limit it to just like Buffy. You could cover anything that makes you this passionate.
Just TV shows we like, or just anything that we
We
like.
could do like, the first bit is the Buffy episode that we have watched, and then tangents happen. As always.
We only have one more question to cover before we probably go on to another tangent, and I'm quite comfortable with that. But obviously I said how you relate to my lockdown, and I'm very curious to hear who your lockdown jams are.
Hmm.
Ooh.
Damn.
Let me check my spot.
My playlist.
Let me check my spot.
Yeah, literally.
That is so much. So my lockdown jams from the Ireland, which is where a lot of people are going to be listening to this from, I would recommend Blackbird and Crow. They're incredible. I would recommend Seven Levels. They're from Waterford. They're incredible. And I would recommend Thumper because they are my Lord and Saviour.
Nice.
I have seen you repping their stuff recently, quite a lot.
Yeah.
I'm really into a band called Hops at the moment. They're a small band from Bristol. No, Falmouth, right? Falmouth. Yeah, who we did like a mini weekend tour with, and I really did.
They're really nice.
They're really cool. They're really nice people. And they're bringing out a music video. Yeah, they're bringing out a music video next month, which is I'm so pumped.
Yeah, it's like a really nice mix, like dream pop and math, I'd say. Nice.
I listen to a lot of Ganglions. They're amazing.
Yes.
They're like one of my favourite bands of all time, and
2/3 Irish as well.
They are Irish, yeah. Where are they from? Are they from Cork? Or
Scally is. I don't know where Eamon's from.
I can't remember where she said she was from.
Sorry guys, we love you, but we don't know where you're from.
Other than Ireland.
Yeah. Although
they're amazing.
Yeah, and I would say, talking about our past gigs, our gig with Ganglions in Sheffield on our very first tour is probably the best gig I've ever played in my life. They are amazing.
With Pillow Queens.
No.
Queen.
The Audacious Art Experiment DIY gig, Polly, if you remember that one.
Yeah, it was the gig where it was like really crammed like DIY space, and your parents came, and then someone offered them a joint. And
Oh,
And they're like, not for us, please. No,
yeah.
You keep on taking away.
I
yeah.
think we were on stage at that point.
Oh yeah, and there was just a big dance party afterwards.
No, different gig that was.
No,
Oh,
that was a rave after.
Okay, going back to an earlier point, that was a great gig, but I had so much social anxiety that gig, so I didn't actually enjoy it.
Oh,
I had to take myself off for a walk.
I think I remember that. I'm not sure.
Maybe I can't remember for when alone or if someone came with me. I don't know. But I kind of kept it to myself at the time. But it was really annoying because it was such a cool gig and such a cool atmosphere and everything. Even my cover photo, I think on Facebook, is literally from that gig where we're all together.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Social anxiety hits you at the most random of times. It's weird.
Yeah. But tangenting back,
That is sorry.
we love Ganglions. They're amazing.
But who's your pick, Matt? Because that was Tom's. Like
That was mine. Yeah.
For jams at the moment, I've been listening to a lot of Ruben. I really like Ruben. They're like, if you go back to like early 2000s, like precursor to math rock. You can look at Ruben and Biffy Clyro as the big sort of like alt rock bands to push into the mainstream, but also keep that weird, janky, techie math rock vibe. They're very good. Yeah.
I've not.
Well, that was an incredible interview. I'm sorry for cutting you off by accident, Tom.
It's all right. I was just saying I haven't listened to them that much. That's all I had to say.
Is there anything you would like to add as a group to the interview before I end it and we say goodbye to everyone?
We're going to record an album at some point, and it might come out next year. We don't know, because who knows about the future anymore.
Next year at the earliest, either way. Put it that way.
Yeah, there will be more fairs, but who knows?
Yeah. And stay safe. Stay alert.
Yeah. Stay alert.
I'm going to stop recording now. This has been so much crack. I'm so happy you came on. So just 1 second.